Greetings everyone, and before I start this video, I need to start this off with a little bit of information first. I received this sword at a significant discount, and the reason why I'm telling you this is because I don't want anybody to think I have any kind of biases or anything else. If you suspect any, well, maybe that's why. I'm going to be trying to keep this fair and balanced, and I firmly believe in not recommending anything that I myself would not purchase. So with that out of the way, let's begin the review. The sword I'm going to be reviewing for you folks is a handmade katana by a master swordsmith. It is the Kuroi Hanabi handmade katana. This is sold through Romance of Men for $122. Let's get into some basics of the sword, shall we? The steel overall is a 1060 carbon steel. Overall length is 40 inches, the blade length being 28 inches, which is pretty standard for any kind of katana. Hardness is a 45 HRC, which is pretty standard for a 1060 carbon steel. The weight of the blade is 2 pounds. It is a full Tang hand-forged, traditional heat-treated blade. This means it has a soft spine and a hard blade edge. Overall reviews, there are 13 reviews on this thing with 5 stars overall. Let us review this thing pommel to tip. Starting with, well, the pommel, or the Kashira. It's got a beautiful design to it. Floral and a bamboo pattern. It's got a brass inlay and a black background to it. And it stands out really, really well. I was worried that since it standed out so well, that it would bite into the hand during use, but no problems at all, and it felt really good. The complaint I have about it is I don't think it is a brass pommel. It doesn't quite feel like it or have the heft that a normal brass pommel would, but it's not like it's anything that seems detrimental and does seem to actually help the appearance actually a bit. Next we come to the tsuba or handle. It's got a black and red wrap across it. It doesn't quite feel like silk, but it's not like it's anything like a bad material overall. And it's got beautiful ornamentation on it as well. It's actually set into the blade pretty nicely, so it doesn't stand up above it, as I've seen many of them, or most of them are off to do. It's also got a white rayskin background, which does look pretty nice as well. I guess the only major complaint I'd have is that there seems to be like a glue on the end of it that they use to end the wrap. Not my favorite, does stick out a little bit, and I feel like it might be a problem during testing. And the other complaint I would have is that they didn't do a good job of hiding some of the pegs. You can kind of see them. Normally you'd hide them behind the wrap, but you can kind of see them. It's not like it's anything detrimental, and in fact it might make it easier actually to remove if you need to do heavy duty cleaning on it. Again, not detrimental to performance, more of a looks type of thing. Now we'll move on to the fuchi and tsuba, or the sleeve and the guard. The sleeve, again, has the same design as the pommel, a floral and a bamboo pattern, and again, it's set up with that brass inlay with the black background, and it does look really nice. It's raised up pretty well, and it doesn't feel like it bite into my hand at all during testing, so feels pretty good. The thing that stands out the most to me is definitely got to be the tsuba. It's got a beautiful design with the dragon inlay, again, brass with the black background, and it looks really nice. The fitment is also pretty good. It's tight, no real gaps or any kind of real looseness to it. The only complaint I would have is, again, I do not think this is a brass handle or a brass sleeve. I could be mistaken, but I've seen brass and usually tends to look a little bit heavier and have that kind of heft to it. This feels a bit light, and usually you can kind of see some of the softer edges to it. This is very sharp edges. Now, could it just be they have a good mold to it? But more likely, I've seen these going around as an electroplated metal, most likely aluminum. It's not like it's anything bad, or it seems pretty solid still. It's just more of a preference that I prefer brass because it does look a lot heftier and a lot nicer. Next we'll come to the seppa and habaki. These are the spacers and the ferrule. Again, not much to say about it. They look pretty nice. Again, I don't think they're the brass. I think they look a bit like the electroplated aluminum, possibly. I do like the almost like leopard pattern on the ferrule. But overall, they do look nice and not really anything to complain about. They shouldn't affect anything with performance. Next, we have the Seiya or the Scabbard. Overall, fits the blade real nice. It's just simply black with some silver speckling. Got the red and black wrap on it. And overall, it's just beautiful in simplicity. Next, we come to the most important part of this piece, the blade or the katana. Overall, the blade is really nice. Just feeling it with my hand, it definitely feels very sharp. It also has a very beautiful and well drawn out hammer line. I've seen so many of these just kind of blended in with the blade and not very noticeable. This one you could probably see for miles. It also has a really nice blood groove that runs on the whole length of the blade, and it has really nice balance. Just feeling it in my hands, I feel like I have great control over the blade overall. The only complaints I have is that it does not have a folding pattern to it. It's more of a personal preference and it doesn't affect performance. It's just, they look so much nicer just having a little bit of a design going down the length of the blade. The only thing I could say is that it's not a 1095 steel. I prefer a 1095 because it's a little higher carbon and I have a little bit more confidence behind it. 1060 is still a good steel, and that's not to say it isn't. But overall, I just feel a little bit more comfortable with the 1095. It's more of a personal preference again, and I don't think it should affect performance too much. As I stated earlier, the sword had really good balance. So going into the testing, I had a lot of confidence that I could wield this blade really well without having to be worried about overswinging or missing the target entirely. Going to the water bottle chop, I had a lot of confidence, and to be expected, it went through it without a problem. Next came the milk jug chop, and I was a bit more nervous about this one, but to my surprise, it went through it without a problem. Next came to my arch nemesis, cardboard boxes. Overall, I didn't have anything put into the boxes, so I was worried that if I made the cut, it would just simply get caught on something and push the box over, but it was a good test. And overall, the blade went through it without a problem. Cut that box clean in two without an issue. We did one more 7-Up bottle chop before moving on to the more important thing. I figured in light of this season, I figured it was only appropriate for me to chop up a pumpkin. And it went through so cleanly, I am pretty sure that top half did never realized it was separated from the bottom half. Looking through each individual cut, they all cut through very cleanly, had no real grippy parts, especially the pumpkin, which surprised me, that it had no real issues with it and it cut through cleanly, because after all that testing, I was sure there'd be some dull spots on it. Overall, chopped them up really well. Looking up and down the length of the blade here, there's no rolling, there's no scratches on the blade. It almost looks like it's a brand new sword. And I've tested it pretty substantially, and for it to have no real rolling or anything, I was relatively impressed at just how well the heat treat was on this blade. Next up, we'll come to the rankings on this sword. We're going to be using a scale from 1 to 10 in the following 5 categories. The first being appearance, second durability, third quality, fourth value, and the final one, and the most important, usability. First up, we come to appearance. There were a few minor flaws, but overall it was still a very beautiful blade. 8 out of 10. Next is durability. It held up really well in testing and had no real major flaws with it. The only thing I could say is that I wish it was a 1095 steel because I'm not sure how it will hold up in long-term testing being a 1060. Overall though, the blade held up well, 9 out of 10. Quality is next on our list, and I don't give it the highest score because overall the materials didn't feel the best. I mean, they didn't have the brass fitments, and the handle wrap was more of a, didn't quite feel like silk or anything. Overall, I give it a 7 out of 10. For some people, this next one might be the most important thing on the list, is value. Overall, it has a really great value. There's not much to say because only at $122, it is a really good price for the cost of this weapon. Yes, it may not be as cheap and as usable as some of the more $60 blades, or it might not be as fancy as your $200 or $300 ones, but overall, if you're looking to strike a balance between the two, I would say at $122, it is a good value for this sword. 9 out of 10. In my opinion, the most important part of this is the usability factor. It cut everything with relative ease. It was also very well balanced. There's not much to say because overall the sword is a very good example of how simplicity can just lead to great results. 10 out of 10, wouldn't change a thing. Next, we come to the overall rating on this blade, and I give it a very strong 8.6 out of 10. Overall, it's a prime example of how simplicity can just lead to good results. So, to sum up this review, I would say this sword is a brilliant starter piece. At only $122, it is a good value for the money because it looks good and it is very usable. It strikes a good balance between some cheap sword that just is only for use and a more expensive sword that's a great wall hanger. If you're looking to start your blade collection off, I would strongly recommend this blade. So if you're interested in checking out this sword or simply anything else by Romance of Men, I will have a link to this sword specifically as well as their website below. I will also be including just the general name and some description pieces about this sword, just to get an idea if you want to even bother checking it out. I hope you found this video entertaining and the review rather helpful. I thank Romance of Men for sending me this sword, and I really enjoyed testing this thing out. I hope to be doing more of these in the future if possible, and if you all really like this video, I would appreciate a like and subscribe. Thank you all for checking out my channel, and have a great day and a wonderful night.